is a dangerous puncher.
Lewis leads on Tyson!
Long before the neon empire of Las Vegas, before the millions of dollars, before the pay-per-view records and the global mythology, Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis were just two young fighters standing in a small gym in Catskill, New York, unaware that their lives were already moving toward a collision that would take nearly 2 decades to arrive. It was late 1984 when Cus D'Amato, the legendary trainer who had taken a troubled teenager named Mike Tyson under his wing, brought a 19-year-old Canadian-Jamaican prospect named Lennox Lewis into his world. Lewis was tall, powerful, disciplined, and almost unnervingly composed. Tyson was compact, explosive, furious, a human pressure cooker waiting to detonate. For 4 days, the two teenagers sparred behind closed doors, trading punches with the kind of violence that made their age almost irrelevant. D'Amato watched. He studied them. And according to the famous story, he looked at Lewis and predicted that these two young heavyweights would one day fight each other for the fortune of the world. At the time, it sounded like the prophecy of an old boxing genius. Nearly 18 years later, it would sound like something far darker, a warning. Even then, the contrast was obvious. Tyson wanted to invade space, collapse distance, and turn the ring into a phone booth. Tyson was a kinetic weapon built for destruction in short bursts, slipping punches with the peekaboo movement D'Amato had taught him before detonating hooks and uppercuts at terrifying speed. Lewis was different. He was a technician, a giant with patience, range, and a mind that treated the ring like a chessboard. One fighter hunted, the other calculated. Neither man knew it yet, but they were being forged into the perfect opposites. The next decade and a half sent them down radically different roads, but both eventually reached the same summit. Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history when he won the title at just 20 years old in 1986. And for a period of time, he looked less like a champion than a natural disaster wearing boxing gloves. Opponents were beaten physically, but often they were broken psychologically before the fight even began. Tyson's speed, intimidation, head movement, balance, and devastating combinations made him one of the most terrifying athletes of the 20th century. But the same world that made him rich beyond imagination also began consuming him. His personal life became increasingly chaotic. His career was interrupted by prison, and the discipline that once made him almost unbeatable slowly began to fracture. The young Tyson, who moved like a phantom, slipped underneath punches, and attacked from impossible angles, was gradually replaced by a more dangerous but less complete version of himself. A fighter increasingly dependent on raw aggression and single-shot power.
This guy's not so big. When you can't get off punches.
Across the Atlantic and North America, Lewis was building something entirely different. An Olympic gold medalist for Canada in 1988, Lewis entered the professional ranks and, under the guidance of Emanuel Stewart, evolved into one of the most complete heavyweights the sport had ever produced. At roughly 6'5" and around 250 pounds, with an enormous reach and a brutal jab, Lewis did not need to chase destruction. He manufactured it. His jab was not simply a scoring weapon, it was a gate that controlled access to the rest of his arsenal. His right hand waited behind it like a loaded rifle. He could fight at distance, lean on smaller opponents, tie them up when they got close, punish them for entering, and reset before they could establish rhythm. Tyson became a symbol of fear. Lewis became a symbol of control. And by 2002, after years of delays, controversy, politics, and unfinished business, the heavyweight division had nowhere left to hide. The question was no longer whether Tyson was dangerous or whether Lewis was technically superior. The question was, what would happen when the most terrifying puncher of his generation collided with the most methodical heavyweight of his era? The build-up was almost as violent as the fight itself. In January 2002, a promotional press conference in New York descended into chaos when Tyson moved toward Lewis and a confrontation erupted on stage. Security rushed between them, punches were thrown, and in the madness Tyson bit Lewis on the thigh, an image so surreal that it almost seemed scripted for a Hollywood movie. It wasn't. It was Tyson. His Nevada boxing license was revoked, he was fined $335,000, and Las Vegas was suddenly out of the equation. But the fight was too enormous to die. Memphis, Tennessee stepped forward, offering a $12 million site fee to host the event inside the Pyramid Arena on June 8, 2002. When the opening bell finally rang inside the Pyramid Arena, nearly 18 years of history came crashing into the ring with them. Tyson came forward immediately, exactly as Lewis expected, trying to close the enormous distance between them before Lewis could establish control with his jab. For a brief moment, the old Tyson seemed to return. He slipped underneath punches, exploded forward, and landed a few clean shots that reminded everyone why he had once been the most feared heavyweight on the planet. Lewis, however, refused to panic. He kept his composure, extended his jab, and used his size to force Tyson to work for every inch of ground. Tyson wanted a short-range war. Lewis wanted a long-range calculation. The difference became more obvious with every minute. Tyson's head movement was still dangerous, but his legs no longer carried him with the same explosive speed that had defined his prime. Lewis recognized that immediately and began turning the fight into a test of patience. He jabbed Tyson in the face, punished his body, tied him up whenever he got too close, and then reset before Tyson could build momentum. That moment may have been the last real glimpse of the terrifying unpredictability that had once defined Tyson. From there, Lewis gradually took control. His jab became a constant barrier. His right hand began landing with increasing frequency, and Tyson was forced to spend enormous amounts of energy simply trying to get close enough to attack. By the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds, the physical differences were becoming impossible to ignore.
Spent 8 weeks teaching my instincts, and we see
Lewis was not simply taller, he was using his height intelligently.
A dangerous puncher.
Lewis leads on Tyson.
He made Tyson carry his weight in the clinches, forced him to punch from uncomfortable distances, and punished nearly every attempt to enter. Tyson continued marching forward, but the attacks were becoming slower and more desperate. The younger Tyson might have been able to sustain that pressure for 12 rounds, but this was an older fighter who had endured years of personal turmoil, inactivity, injuries, prison, and battles outside the ring. Lewis, meanwhile, was fighting like a veteran who had spent his entire career learning how to solve problems. The man who once sparred with Tyson as a teenager was now standing across from him as a world champion, and he was finally proving that his patience had been worth the wait.
You understand? Not many people can do that. You understand?
At the beginning of the 8th round, Tyson understood that he had almost no time left. He had to take risks. He moved forward again, attempting to force Lewis into a close-range exchange, but Lewis saw the attack coming. He fired a combination, followed with a devastating right hand, and Tyson stumbled backward. The arena erupted as Lewis sensed the finish. Tyson tried to recover, but Lewis stepped forward and landed another crushing right hand. Tyson collapsed to the canvas.
Less bobbing and weaving.
He is a dangerous puncher.
Lewis leads on Tyson.